I think probably detaching sustainability from something that's just going to cost lots of money is something that all businesses that are in this space have to do from the start, because there's lots of very sustainable things you can do that are completely economically not viable. And regardless of whether we need to do them or not, encouraging people to do them is a lot easier if it makes sense financially, especially the people that have the money who are in the big industries that maybe are producing CO2. And if we've come along with a solution that fits every part of that, save the planet, feed the world, start small, then you go from there. Yeah, everyone's winning.
Yeah, I think sustainability is something that's extremely important to us. And if you look forward into the future, let's say 30 years time, when you have targets to reduce carbon emissions to net zero, there's a lot of work to be done to get there. So if you think about how most people, maybe it's unfair to say, but perhaps this is the case for you, if you think about carbon reduction, it would be things like wind power, solar power, and changing your transport mechanism. So instead of going, like a petrol diesel driven car, you go for a Tesla, let's say. So that's all basically electricity generation, transitioning away from fossil fuels. But that's only really half the problem solved. The other half being big industries that have big carbon footprints. So something like cement production, just converting limestone, which is the raw material, into cement creates half the CO2 in the cement making process. The other half comes from burning fuels. So you could not burn those fuels and burn biofuels instead, or hydrogen, and have a green process in that respect. But then the other half of the problem is still going to remain. So there needs to be technologies available that can actively capture carbon, either directly from the air, which is what other people like Climaworks are working on, and like with us, directly from emissions. And I think if you think about that in the future from our angle as well, it's also interesting to look at from the business case point of view, because we will reach a point eventually you should be able to sell your CO2, right? Yes. Rather than being taxed for it, it's actually something you can literally make money from.
It's not just a burden, it's actually a resource.
Yeah. So then if that is the case, then it means that we can't rely on relieving the tax that they would have to pay on the CO2 as just a revenue stream for us, and actually think about it through the lens that maybe one day we have to buy the CO2, and with that in mind, it makes the techno-economics of the process really relevant, and then you have to really have a look under the hood and say, is this going to work? Is it going to be efficient in the way that we're doing it? Luckily the case is yes, but it's interesting to think about how different economical ecosystems will look in the future as well because of sustainability. Just like how when the internet came along,